All right, and we're live. Welcome to the first Travel Banana podcast. We're here with Gio.
Thank you, Raz.
Gio, so where are you from?
I'm from Italy.
From Italy, nice. And yeah, would you like to give just a quick introduction?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me, Russ. It's an honor to be the first guest of this new podcast. My name is Gio. I was originally born in Rome, but I think I've always defined myself as a nomad because I've always liked to travel and I had to change place for different reasons. But since 5 years, I've been on the move almost full time. And currently, I work as a disaster management professional with the United Nations Development Program. And I'm fully remote. So I'm currently based in Sri Lanka.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. So how did you get started with that?
Well, it was very random, but I had one class on disaster risk management throughout my undergrad that was in Rome at that time. And it was a very broad faculty because it was called global governance. So we would study about economics and law and science and all sort of things. And among others, we had this one class on disaster management taught by a Turkish professor. And in that moment, I fell in love with this discipline, and I chose that was going to be my life path.
Wow, that's awesome. So you just knew right from that
Yeah,
class that was the way.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
And yeah, so what does that job entail exactly? Disaster management. What's your
yeah,
day-to-day look like? What kind of projects
yeah.
are you working on?
For many people, it's hard to grasp, including my mom. I think she still hasn't understood what I actually do.
Yeah.
Uh, but basically, in my current position with the UN, we are supporting governments worldwide to build resilience to face a whole plethora of challenges and crises, starting from the natural ones. So that's our entry point, so to say, with earthquakes, floods, volcanoes, and so forth. But then
Mhm.
also the work we're doing also encompasses conflict and war, or sometimes refugee crisis, because when you talk about the resilience of a system, it's about any kind of scenario, right? So we
Mhm.
mostly work on disaster preparedness and early warning, which are all the strategies that you implement prior to something happening or going wrong. So trying to minimize the impact or preventing it altogether.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. So, and you can do that fully remotely, or
Yeah,
do
I
you
can.
kind of like meet up with people, your coworkers
No,
sometimes?
it's basically a fully remote position because in disaster preparedness, given that the crisis still hasn't happened,
Hmm.
um, most things you can do online. And we're talking about, contingency planning, strategic decision making, training, these kind of things can all be done online. There are a few exceptions that I still enjoy going to the field whenever I get a chance. So, for example, 2 weeks ago, I had to travel to the Philippines uh, because the Philippines is at the moment one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to climate change, to crises like with the geological profile. Volcanoes, earthquakes are on a yearly basis. And I had to go there because we had to train an airport 80 kilometers away from Manila for a big
Mm.
earthquake that is expected to happen in Manila, actually. So like once in a while, it does happen that I can be deployed or travel, which is still fun. But then most of the time, I enjoy my remote working.
Oh, nice. And so did you choose to be in Sri Lanka, or that's just more suitable for your work?
No, I just chose it based on my personal interest. And at the moment, that is mainly surfing. um,
Nice.
so yeah, a few years ago, I had more constraints in terms of like where I could travel because of, for example, time difference with the people I was working with. But at the moment, sitting at the HQ of UNDP, basically my team is global. So there are people in Geneva, there are people in London, people in the US. And it's actually better for having people scattered throughout the planet because it allows uh, it to be easier to communicate with certain countries. So, for example, now we have a program for the Pacific, and it's convenient that I'm in Sri Lanka because it's closer to the Pacific. But in a way, I'm required to be anywhere, so it's just my personal choice.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, how's the cost of living there? Is it expensive in Sri Lanka, or
Well,
is it pretty
it's actually more,
affordable?
it is more expensive than I expected before coming. But I think that is because this year they had the worst economic crisis since Sri Lanka exists as an independent country, right? The inflation rate was over 70%. Um, so basically, everything almost doubled in terms of price. Then, still, with the
Hmm.
currency exchange, for more people bringing US dollars in the country, they don't feel the weight as much as local people. But at the same time, it's a country that's been heavily um, discovered by digital nomads, by tourism and entrepreneurs. So there are many Western owned businesses. And for example,
Hmm.
many of them at the moment, they have a menu that is in US dollars because they don't want to change the price every time with inflation. So
Hmm.
in general, yeah, it's more expensive than I thought, but still not too bad, of course, compared to other places.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I haven't really heard of any digital nomads in Sri Lanka. I know of like Bali's popular,
Mm.
Thailand, yeah, maybe Mexico is popular, but Sri Lanka not. But you said there's a lot of nomads there working remote. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it is one of the top destinations in the world as far as surfing is concerned. So there's like many people coming also just for traveling and surfing, but then many of them they found a way to stay long term and work from here. And I think a few years ago, in terms of Wi-Fi stability and infrastructures, it was way less developed than it is right now. But from my
Hmm.
experience, even in other countries where I've been in the past 3 to 4 years, you have co-working, co-living spaces mushrooming all over the world, and this is one of the hotspots where many entrepreneurs they built. Like for example, even the co-live where I'm staying at the moment, it was born 2 years ago. So, I think it's only in the more recent times it's really becoming a hub for nomads as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, it seems like since 2020, they're just like popping up all over the place, like co-work
Yeah, yeah,
spaces and yeah, and like so many people are working remote and it's like, yeah, it's amazing. And
yeah.
like, yeah, like everything's getting easier, like Wi-Fi is getting faster. So you're in you live in the co-work space, or is it just like you work there and you have like an
No,
apartment or something?
no, it is a co-living and co-working space. So it's very nice because in the building, basically in the ground floor, you have the shared community area with like games, musical instruments, like whatever to chill and relax with the other nomads. And then in the first floor, you have the co-working space. And then on the second floor, you have all the bedrooms. So I live above the co-working space, makes it very convenient for just waking up in the morning. You go down the staircase and then you can start working. On the other, sometimes I realize that it blurs the boundary between working life and personal life, if that makes sense.
Right, sure.
But
You're
it's
probably
still,
distracted, right?
yeah, because even
Yeah.
even if I have to go out from my bedroom, basically I go through the co-working and then I see everyone is working there, and it kind of brings me back to that kind of office mindset, as opposed to when you're actually working from an office that you wouldn't go there again. You know?
Right. Yeah, right. Having that like division of space, I feel is pretty important to like actually getting your work done and like maintaining a schedule. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah, I was like a digital nomad in Costa Rica, but I just like found an Airbnb. I didn't do any like co-living,
Mhm.
co-working space, but
Well,
do you
an
feel
additional. I'm sorry. I just want to say an
yeah,
additional
yeah, no
challenge
problem.
like that pushed me to choose a co-living and co-working space here is that, as you might know, in Sri Lanka they have continuous power cuts throughout the day because of the energy crisis. So basically,
Mm,
every day there's at least 1 hour where you have no power whatsoever, and these spaces they do have a power backup generator, so it allows you to seamlessly continue working. Otherwise, it would be very disrupting if you're an Airbnb and you have maybe an evening meeting because of the time difference, and then all of a sudden you're uh, cut off from the digital environment.
right. Yeah, internet is key as a digital nomad.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's nice. So you have the stability of the internet, and then, yeah, are you able to like network with other people living there? Is it? have you made a lot of good connections there?
Yeah, at the moment it is more quiet than it was last year, from what they say. But there are still a few people coming and going, and there are a few friends that are staying long term in the same way that I do. So it's nice people because also they work online. So it's like it can have that kind of productive part of the day together. But then when we both finish, we can just go out surfing or having a beer or stuff like that. But yeah, at the moment it is more quiet. Like in other countries, there would be I found more people working online, and it was easier to connect, to create that community in that sense.
Hmm. Oh, nice. And what kind of jobs are most popular? Is it pretty diverse in terms, are there a lot of like programmers, or is
Mm,
it all over?
it is very diverse. I think, for example, even my job, it shows how diverse it can be, like the digital nomad landscape. But mostly, definitely, there are software developers, IT people working in UX design, for example, back end, front end development, and then, for example, the German couple, they're close friends of mine here. They are translators, like freelancing translators.
Hmm.
But then I've seen like really teachers, therapists, gaming experts, designers, like any kind of stuff, basically.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and do you think this is something you're going to be doing long term, or do you plan to ever like go back to sort of go to office, stay in one place kind of life?
So for me, I was never really in an office. I think my only experiences in an office-based job were with my internships. Although one of them was in Indonesia, and it was in a tsunami mitigation center. So like it was still very dynamic, right? So I would go to the office in the day to day, but then we did field assessments and we got deployed when it was a tsunami. So that was very exciting, and it kept it
Hmm.
interesting. I don't think I
Hmm.
would ever be able to live in an office like full time. So my other option at the moment that I'm sort of exploring is to get more into um, field positions. So to switch from the
Hmm.
preparedness side of things to the response, meaning as
Yeah.
soon as there's a crisis anywhere, you get deployed and you can go. And that would be sort of a trade-off and giving up where like my choice as far as where I go is concerned, but it's more like whenever a crisis there is, then I have to go. But
Hmm.
still, it would allow me to travel
Right. Yeah. And that could be anywhere in the world. You can get
anywhere. Yeah,
sent. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. That's like I would
mm,
never have thought this kind of job existed for digital nomads. So that's really neat.
yeah.
So um yeah, and I guess yeah, maybe what's your like daily routine look like? How do you
At
set
the
up
moment,
your
is
life?
like it's one of the best ones that I've ever had in any country.
Mhm.
Because the time difference, it makes it easier for me to have a slower start of the day. Because for example, at some point I was in Portugal and I was working for a company in Turkey. So I was 3 hours behind in the winter, meaning I had to wake up at like 5 in the morning just for start working right away. And I
Mhm.
did enjoy it in its own way, but it was also like going to bed very early, and kind of the whole working day was super early. But now it's the opposite, because most people I work with, they are in Europe or in the US, meaning I just wake up at 6 with the first light, and then I spend 2 3 hours in the water surfing, and then I get back and I have breakfast with my flatmates, and then we all start working around 10 10:30 in the morning. A few hours of productive stuff, and then in the evening again we can just unwind together and go out for a meal or something like that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so and you're in control of your schedule, or does like you can work whenever you want at any time, or is there like there's
I'm
some
pretty flexible.
Mhm.
At the moment there is a British couple living with us, and they are they're working for UK-based companies, and they really have the like sort of 9 to 5 work time, but applied to Sri Lanka. So it's like 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. And those are the hours they have to be online regardless of anything going on. And to me, like that is sort of being a captive in your freedom, right? Because it's really like you're bound to sit in front of a laptop for those hours. For me, it's like it's much more flexible. So in general, I choose when to work and when to do what. It's only like I have a few meetings every week, and those are kind of my marks for like, okay, this day maybe I need to work from this hour to that hour, but it's not really super binding.
Wow. And you get, I guess you get weekends off, like Saturday,
Weekends
Sunday.
off.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Wow, that's awesome. How's the weather out there right now?
You know, actually, today is very bad, but because
Okay.
what they've been saying these days, because in theory the dry season started about 3 weeks ago, so the rain in theory like are supposed to be over until May or June next year. But what they've been saying is there was some weird winds from India actually that brought a lot of pollution to Sri Lanka. So they were also recommending wearing face masks and avoiding being in the rain because apparently it's acid. And basically the pollution is blocking the sun rays, so it got super cold all of a sudden. Like last night I was with a blankie in bed.
Oh,
I was not
oh
used to
no.
this.
Okay. Right. So I guess
Yeah.
it's unpredictable, the weather.
Yeah, very much so.
Oh. And
Yeah,
when
big
you,
chunk.
yeah. And then, so when you go surf, you just walk over? Is the beach like walking distance?
There is one that is walking distance, but I'm very lucky because in where I live, there are about 12 to 20 surfing spots according to how far you go, and they're all like top notch quality. And the issue here now is like there are too many surfers. I can get very
Okay.
misanthropic when it comes to surfers because we are too many in every country. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of cycling or driving around just to find the least crowded one. But there are many options. So at the end of the morning, you always find something just with a few people and good quality waves.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, when I was in Costa Rica, also the surf was very popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, a great place for surfing. So
Yeah, I was also in Costa Rica a few years ago. I was just backpacking, but I was in La Fortuna, I think, on
oh, nice.
the Pacific coast. Yeah, it was very good surfing as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's like one of the staples of digital nomad life. It's like, you gotta surf, gotta be by the beach,
Yeah.
be in the tropical climate, nice and warm.
Yeah, exactly.
But oh man, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I guess like maybe a question is how did you initially find this remote job? Was it through networking or through your school, or was it just
It was
online?
a mix. It was a mix of school and networking because basically, do you remember the first class that I told you about in my bachelor? That was with a professor from Turkey. And then after I graduated from that university, I moved to Sweden to pursue a master's degree specifically in disaster risk management. And then after I graduated with my master's, I got back in touch with my professor from my undergrad, and I was like, "Hello, I have a degree now. What are you up to?" And he told
Yeah.
me he was just starting a new contract in Istanbul for an earthquake scenario that also the city of Istanbul is awaiting. And so basically said, I'm looking for a young professional, like even a fresh graduate is okay. So I went there at the beginning to understand better the Turkish context and to see like what I was working on. But the job was already remote. So it was through him and then it kind of kickstarted my whole disaster management career.
Okay, wow, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
I guess you'd say that master's degree really helped you getting the master's
Yeah,
in Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very useful because basically there are, at least a few years ago, there were not many programs on this subject because it's quite specific. And in the past,
Hmm.
it was mostly a collective effort of people coming from different fields of expertise. So there would be engineers, there would be geologists, climatologists, and so forth. But then now with the amount of crises that we have every year, climate change and pandemics and wars, they realize that the need for a specialized person, like who could have a holistic perspective on how disasters impact systems worldwide. So basically, the many professionals from the field came together and they decided to create these programs. That in the US, for example, you have a lot because you have a different kind of culture around disaster management with FEMA taking the lead in these things. But in Europe, it was something very new. So they had strong connections with the academia, but also with the big organizations working on this.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you and yeah, Sweden, I know like getting a master's in the US can be very expensive. But
Mm-hmm.
in Europe, is it also a big like financial commitment, or it's
No, man. It's a different universe. So basically, like
yeah.
I would say, honestly, like 50%. Although, like I knew this was what I was gonna do in my life.
Mhm.
The choice for going to Sweden to this masters was like maybe 60%. The other 40% was because in Sweden, the university is tax free for all of European citizens. So I had to
Okay.
pay nothing for 2 years of education, like top quality education. And these allow me to be independent financially right away, like as soon as I moved there, and it was amazing, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's like sounds much better than the US.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I was looking into some master's programs in like Spain, and the cost is so much lower. It's incredible.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, but awesome. Yeah, and then yeah, I guess do you have any like any tips for people who want to work remote or maybe want to get into your industry?
Yeah, definitely. So, well, maybe for the listeners who don't know that you got in touch with me because of a blog that you found online.
All right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I love
so,
the
so,
blog. Thank you. It was
so
great.
I think that would be a good starting point for anyone because
Mm,
the need for this blog basically it's a blog where I explain the main learnings and challenges that I encountered in this past 3 years that I've been working online and 5 years that I've been traveling.
hmm.
Because many people often they idealize this lifestyle, right? They look at the Instagram pictures and they go, yeah, that is my dream life. I want to do it. But then they do not realize that it comes at a cost of adaptation, of emotional difficulties, and so forth. So for me,
Mm,
like the need for this blog was to really showcase what are like the full package because people often they don't see it. And then maybe like the first thing for me would be for people to really meditate and to consider, is this kind of lifestyle right for me? Because maybe it's more a romantic version understanding of traveling, but then, well, you know it yourself, right? Okay, the
mm.
monsoon just arrived, but um, and then once you start, I also shared at the end of the blog a toolkit of resources that I just put together myself, and with useful links, websites that help me out throughout the years, and finding better prices for accommodation, finding co-working, and so forth. So that would be a second thing, and then a third thing, just to connect with people leading the same lifestyle, because I think networking is the most valuable source of knowledge and wisdom in this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I just started getting on like Twitter and Instagram with this like
Mm,
my travel banana stuff. So
yeah.
yeah, it's incredible how much stuff is out there. There's like so many
Yeah.
people, so many stories, so many opportunities. It's like yeah, it's like all online now. It's so
Mm,
much easier than like finding people in the real world.
yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
you're limited to
Sadly
like
and luckily. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah. But and did you have the intention of becoming a digital nomad, or were you more focused on your career and it just happened to lead to a remote job?
Yeah, I would say it was more of a byproduct of my career choice. And I was very lucky in this sense because I think when I graduated in 2019, I think I never heard of the term digital nomadism before. So like I didn't know it could be a thing. I just knew that I wanted to travel, and like this choice of getting into disaster management is also deriving from the passion that I have for traveling and getting to know different cultures and being on the move. But then in my specific position, it just happened to be that, because this is very common, at least for disaster management for consultants, because usually like I'm a consultant even right now, so usually you have shorter term contract, is not open ended, which comes with more instability and uncertainty in a way, but also with more flexibility. So that's why, like, most times they're not consultants that are allowed to work from home because they might have multiple jobs at the same time. And I like this lifestyle because it's similar to freelancing basically, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, nice. And do you have any side projects or side work you do as well on top of this?
Actually, yes. The main thing is a environmental NGO that I co-founded 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago in Rome. And also this one started off as an entirely spontaneous project, basically from cleaning up the beaches in Rome, in the village where I grew up, because the level of plastic pollution is just becoming insane. There is so much whenever you go on the beach, and I just chose to like start cleaning up some of this trash with my friends, and then this thing evolved very organically into movement, it's a brand. So we set up a legal organization, like it's more of a association, and now it's still active after more than 4 years. And we developed our portfolio to do more activities related to environmental awareness, school workshops, festivals, all kind of initiatives connected to sustainability, plastic pollution, and zero waste.
Wow, yeah, that's great. That's great
Yeah.
stuff. And were you always passionate about that? Like since you were a kid, was that your dream? Like your dream job?
I wouldn't say it was like a dream per se, but I think it was more like part of my upbringing and education. Just my family and my mother, like there was a lot of spending time outdoors, and really being grateful for the small things that nature gives us. So like there was sort of this innate respect, and yeah, maybe respect is the most important keyword. And just for example, in my village, one of the things that I find most dangerous is the normalization of pollution and the way people relate to trash. Just in the small things like your friend throwing up the cigarette butt onto the sidewalk, or the person tossing the can from the car. These kind of things, they became so common and so ordinary that people got used to it, and they perceive that as a normal behavior. And then for me, coming from my family, I was like, I knew this was wrong, so I basically fought it with all my strength, because it's unacceptable.
Right, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's especially now with the population growing so much, all the climate change going on, it's kind of scary.
Yeah,
but
it is.
yeah, but yeah, that's great. That's great. You're doing something great for the world. So, all right. Do you have any final things you'd like to share? Any last words?
Not really. Maybe just if whoever is listening wants to have more guidance, either connected to nomadism or climate change, disaster management, I'm also happy to have a chat and to support people, because I realize how, like, as you said, there is so much out there in the digital space, but also for many people it's just hard to find kind of good mentorship or good information about what they're looking for. And throughout these years, I could build a lot of experience and to meet many people essentially in different continents. And in the past, there were people that needed some kind of specific advice, and then I could connect them to the right person for the kind of need they had. So just don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll be happy to help.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it can be pretty overwhelming on the internet. There's like so much
Yeah.
information overload, but awesome. All right, well, thanks for coming today. Enjoy the surf.
Thank you,
All
Russ.
right.
It's been a pleasure.